Danny Ridyar was a scholar. I think it was back in the 40s, 50s. I don't remember. But again, the lunation cycle, that's something very perceptible. It has a tremendous effect on our water and everything. And we know, without going into that, but there's a very, very important cycle involving all kinds of plant life and growth and everything. And so the lunar cycle was also used in a lot of ways by different societies to calculate certain kinds of things. And I think it was like a 19-year cycle or something like that. And again, you combine the lunar cycle with the solar cycle, and then you have a whole bunch of calculations right there. And then you talk about some of these big planets like Jupiter and Saturn, like they just radiate a huge amount of energy out into the solar system. And again, our bodies are like immersed, like we're like a sponge in the water, right? We're saturated with cosmic, space and atoms and electrons and photons and heat and all that stuff. We're just how we exist here in this soup here. So again, the lunation cycle, very important for life and plant life and so on. Another really famous guy, Alan Leo, who wrote a lot of books, this is esoteric astrology, about personal development. Using the cycles of nature, as above, so below. There's an inner cycle. There's a cycle of societies over thousands of years, and there's cosmic influences from the sun and other systems and so on. And then there's within us, again, inside us, in our psyche, the ideal thing is to become in tune with that whole psychic. And esoteric astrology has to do with the personal journey of enlightenment and letting go and understanding a lot of stuff, including the polarities and even the plants and various kinds of stones are associated with different signs because of certain kinds of geometry and so on. So esoteric astrology can open the door to something very, very interesting for people who haven't gone beyond like their daily horoscope and so on. Real quickly here, another Isabel Hickey, very famous. I think she was in the 70s. The cosmic cycle. Now this one is more detailed about the different signs, and it really is fascinating. It's a tremendous psychological insight tool to look into astrology in depth and esoteric astrology, the meaning of the signs, the polarities, the types of relationships, the types of obstacles we have in our life, the tendencies we have. It's just an amazing self-reflection device. And all the ancient people from the Renaissance, they studied astrology, but they didn't have the advantage of some of the modern skills and so on. So there's some really great insight, even in the last 50, 100, 150 years of esoteric astrology and insight into the cycles of human life. Real quickly here, Reinhold Emmertine. Again, he was a German, and he was very precise, and he investigated cycles very, very skillfully, took a lot of data analysis, did a lot of charts, and he found out that the hard angles in astrology, like a 45, 90, 175, or 180, and so on, 90, those types of hard angles often signify events in people's lives or certain kinds of things, and he went into looking at the cyclic grander picture, man in the universe, and also applied cosmology and the cosmic marriage. And people looked into the health and when does death happen, when does disease happen, when are family conflicts most likely, when are economic events happening in people's lives or in the world. That's another book called, we'll run through a few here quickly. Karmic astrology, the moon's nodes and reincarnation. Well, where's our DNA? What's embedded in our DNA? Subconscious stuff and stuff that's activated by the moon and various cycles and so on. It's very fascinating to get into. Case notes of a medical astrologer. There are people who have been professionals in medical field who also were astrologers. So this guy was a woman was an MD, and looking into, hey, what, again, you may not say causality, you can just say, well, this is, correlation, because you say, well, when people have certain kinds of diseases and problems, it just so happens that we notice these certain kinds of aspects. It doesn't mean that if you see those aspects, that's the actual cause. But we just so happen to know that for some reason that we can't explain yet, you'll see the same kinds of astronomical aspects and problems in similar kinds of diseases. Timing of events, again, in ordinary astrology. The ancient people, when they baptized a temple or a person or whatever, I mean, it was like all about calculation. Where's the moon? Where's the sun? All that. What cycle are we in here? And Jupiter was supposed to be the great benefit because, again, Jupiter rescues Earth, the solar system, because a lot of the debris that goes through our solar system just happens to go to Jupiter first. It doesn't get as far inland, so to speak, toward the Earth and so on. So in that sense, Jupiter is supposed to be a benefic, and then there is Saturn, which is supposed to be like a crystallized force, like there's a crazy, amazing principles involved in the tale of astrology. If you look into it, it's just amazing. Like the geometry, the numbers, the archetypes, the movement of energy, the ebb and the flow, the polarities, the psychological aspect of it, the physical aspect of it. It's an amazing subject to study. And I don't study it so much anymore. I often check the daily thing, but for me, it's just like the weather. Yeah, okay, you just have a general idea of what the weather is today, and hey, maybe it's going to rain in the afternoon, no problem. Oh, it's going to, or maybe it's going to be cold tonight. I can deal. There's things that you can pick out in astrology if you really get into detail and get really really nitty gritty and down to the minute and stuff. You can start getting into some really crazy stuff like timing of events, or if you watch for an aircraft crash or a particular event like when 9/11 happened, you start looking at the astrology involved. See. And then you correlate that with other charts of certain people and countries. You go, okay, so there's something incredible involved in the correlation, and that alone, you could spend a whole lifetime just like, wow, calculating charts and seeing all the combination of things and so on. And people write these books and so on. So, but I encourage people to investigate astrology on a deeper level and think about some of the more inner aspects of it. I know Carl Jung, the great psychotherapist, he also studied astrology, and many people have, because it's not woo woo stuff. It's sort of like, hey, you know what? You don't have to be able to explain everything, how everything works, but you can say there's something going on here that's worth a closer look, and that's why I make these videos to help people understand. Look, take a look at these subjects a little more in depth and explore some of these other authors and researchers and people. Especially get into like sidereal Indian astrology and also what they call mundane astrology, which is locating a building or something like that, or world events, or the grander scale. Because let's say you go from the cycle of precession of 25,920 years or something like that, and you divide that up, and I think it was 2160 per sign, and you divide that up in subdivisions, and there's like still a number system that we use today in the use of 60 and 360 and tens and sixes, and it's a tremendous way of keeping a calendar in our kind of theoretically spherical universe, you might say, or at least our solar system. So again, I love hearing people comment on stories and books that they've read, and I try to point people in a lot of different directions because it's not just me here talking, and I know I can bring my commentary here, but go off on your own and explore. And let me know how you feel. Like and share. I really appreciate the feedback. Thanks again for listening.